Welcome, everybody. My name is Emily, and I'm on the events team at the Ann Arbor District Library. And I am so happy to be here today with Gus Andrews, who is going to be talking to us about her new book, Keep Calm and Log On. I want to thank Literati Bookstore for bringing Gus Andrews our way, and there will be a link in the description of this video for purchasing a copy of this book through their website if you would like. So I just want to begin by asking Gus, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and what led you to write this book?
Sure, thanks, Emily. Well, my background's pretty unusual. I have a background in technology, but it's sort of along the lines of what people do with the technology. So I did a doctorate in education at Teachers College some years back, and during that time was also going to a whole lot of hacker conferences. And when I say hacker conferences, they're sort of digital security conferences. We're not all doing bad things, but we're also trying to help people understand how people can do bad things to them, like what kinds of what we call exploits are out there to try to attack you and to attack your finances and things like that. So that led to around the time of the Snowden revelations, when there was an increased interest in privacy and security, me working at the Open Internet Tools Project and on the Internet Freedom Festival, which are focused on supporting activists, journalists, and human rights workers around the world in protecting their privacy and their security from governments and other people who might want to harm them in some way. So through that, I learned a lot more about how to best protect everyday people when it comes to their digital privacy and their security. And yeah, aside from that, I also produced a show called The Media Show, which is a YouTube series on media literacy. It has puppets, and that was sort of an attempt that relates to Keep Calm and Log On a little bit. And then it was sort of it's just working on trying to help people, understand the media that they take in all the time and how it may be trying to influence them.
And I would totally recommend The Media Show to to anybody who wants to learn more about how media is made and distributed and consumed. It's pretty fun. Okay, so this book, Keep Calm and Log On, I really enjoy this book, and it's one of those books where I would just really highly recommend it to anybody who has any sort of anxiety, or even people who don't have any anxiety about technology and media. It's as we'll be talking about in a little bit, it's a lot more comprehensive than I thought it was. When I picked it up, I thought it was going to be about, making secure passwords and protecting your data. And it's actually about thinking about a whole range of things about online safety and really what that means. So I think the two things that I really appreciated, like right off in this book that you talk about, because this book actually is like a calming force. It like calms you down.
I'm so glad it worked.
Yeah. One is that you say, that like technology is broken and that people's struggles with it are legitimate, and it's not because people are stupid. And thank you. And we're gonna talk a little bit later about kind of why some of that is, but thank you for saying that, because I think so many people, when they are having trouble with technology, they blame themselves, they feel a lot of shame. Mm-hmm. And I think that this book kind of allays a lot of the icky feelings around technology that so many of us have. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I love that you acknowledge is that, everybody, and, like I'm a millennial, like I'm like an early millennial. And so, my whole life, almost, it seems like, at least for the past 20 years, I've been hearing that we're in a digital revolution. This is a technology revolution. And it's true, right? The world has completely changed. completely changed. But you point out that revolutions don't always feel good to experience.
Right. Exactly.
And revolutions, right, whether they're like discrete events like the French Revolution or longer term events like the Industrial Revolution, these are massive upheavals and disruptions in people's lives. And so just acknowledging that and being like, yeah, it does feel like we're in a revolution, but not necessarily.
Yeah, not in a good way. So
not
yeah.
in a good way. Not in a good way. And so I read this book, and I would like to think that I absorbed some of its wisdom. And so I have to tell you about something that happened to me last week, which was I was just looking at my personal email account, and something in me just snapped because I had just gotten so many emails with horrible subject lines that were coming at me from various sources. And so I actually just started a list called Stuff My Email Says, but I did not use the word stuff.
Of course.
And I started this list like less than a week ago. Okay. And these are actual words or phrases that have shown up in subject lines, just like sitting in my inbox. Dangerously close, crisis, urgent, last chance, we blew it, critical update, act fast, oh no, scary news.
Oh no.
I literally received an email that the entire subject line was just, oh no.
Oh no.
And these are not emails. No. Yeah, these are not emails from my friends, right? These are emails from nonprofits, from political campaigns. Right. And I just had this moment where I had to make this list because it was like, my inbox is making me crazy, and I need to get this written down somewhere so I can look at it and see that I'm not crazy.
Right, that it's just the way it's coming through. So
yeah,
it really kind of sucks to think about it specifically coming in through email, because most of what I'm talking about in my book is talking about things that come through social media, because social media also do that kind of thing.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a good observation when it comes from nonprofits and from companies and from places like that, because those are people who want you to act. And this is actually something that really spans a lot of media, and actually a lot of the time that we see it in our inboxes, it's phishing. Like sometimes it's phishing or spam, like, right? So somebody wants you to act fast and buy something on the spam, or with phishing, they want you to act fast and give them your password, or they want you to act fast and turn over some data from the company you work for, or something like that. So this is something we all have to pay attention to. And one of the things I talk about in the book is the fear appeal, right? This is something, if you ever were in a media literacy class, in the days before the internet, they would talk about the fear appeal in advertising, like, your breath smells bad, buy toothpaste X, or something like that. But we've sort of lost track of that because we think, this is a new medium. And as you observed, Emily, at one point, like in the book, I'm kind of agnostic about like which media we're talking about, because honestly, all the media comes to us through many of the same channels now, whether it comes on our TV or a laptop or our phone or whatever like that. They're all coming through, and you can use the same techniques to understand what they're doing to you. And fear appeal is absolutely number one right now. People are really trying to not just make you afraid, but get you to act on that fear. And that's something that I'm really recommending we all slow our roll on right now. There's some really good techniques in media literacy. There's one woman who has a process called whoa, wait, what, where you sort of, first you go, whoa, what is this I'm reading? And you go, what does it say? It says, oh no. Wait, and then you go, okay, well, I'm gonna look for what it's asking me to act on, but I'm not gonna act on it. And you go, what? And then you go, what do they really want? Right? So that's one technique you can use to sort of slow your roll that way. I also recommend a lot of just turning it off, especially like since the pandemic, one of my big pieces of advice is like, make a no news period. I mean, a lot of people have probably already done this. It's probably old news for a lot of people, but just don't read news before bed. I don't read news in the morning all that much either, because I know I need to sit down. Like, I work for myself, and so I need to clear my head out and just get my work done. I mostly, if I read news, it's at like lunchtime, right? So come up with boundaries for yourself for, sort of calming down. Another thing I really recommend is if you are a fan of a 24/7 news channel, I don't care which one it is, which one it leans politically, they are major culprits for this, because this is a business model that needs to fill 24 hours of content all the time. They need to keep your attention. What they're doing is keeping your attention there, right? They need you to keep watching because there are advertisers who they need to pay them to have that on, like, despite the fact that they're news. So, just turning those off and only going for the news at particular times of day, it's still going to be there when you look for it. There will still be plenty of news, and you're not going to miss out totally. Like, it will get to you somehow. So yeah.
Yeah. And thinking about, you said the 24 hour news cycle, this just made me think too. I listened to a wonderful podcast. I mean, wonderful in the sense that it's amazingly well done, not because it's happy. It's called Floodlines. And it's like a maybe 6-part series about Hurricane Katrina. And it's just so good. It's so good. I would recommend everybody to listen to it. And one thing they were saying, so Hurricane Katrina happened 2005, and one of the worst outcomes of this storm is the media, and which had these very racist outcomes that ended up actually taking people's lives. Like so much fear was stoked both within the city and without the city, because information was not passing in clear ways, that it was really, really tragic. And they pointed out that one of the reasons why that happened, because in 2005, you have a 24-hour news cycle, but not everybody has smartphones yet. And so it's like they need constant news, but they don't actually have news. Right. And so reporters were just like, well, some guy down the street told me this. Right. So I'm going to talk about that as if it is actually news. Right. And when it's not, it's just, most of this stuff was completely unsubstantiated rumor. Right.
Yeah.
And
then there's also the fear appeal of it too. So for example, you'll have coming up at such and such a thing, and it's like they're hinting and hinting and hinting. So that's how they're keeping you glued to it, even when it's not. Yeah. And then aside from that, they're speculating. They're like, we think we just found this. Stay tuned to find out. So I mean, they really. I have my moments where I honestly think that one of the things that will be said about American democracy at some point in this era is how much that shapes what we know. Yeah, right. I just think it's and how we make decisions too, because we make decisions based on the stuff that we see there, and that's and it's politically too. It's the same thing. They're going to fill things, so they're going to talk about so and so's clothes, or they're going to, and mostly women. They'll talk mostly about women's clothes. They're not going to talk about men's clothes as much. They're going to talk about how somebody's position looks and not what they've actually done, because they're just filling time. And so, yeah, that's I think a major thing for me is just turn those stations off and go someplace else. Print news is frequently better, just because it's sort of like, we got it at a particular point in time, and there should be, by rights, isn't always, but there should be fact checkers on it, making sure that things are going well. So yeah. So kind of adjacent to this, right? We're kind of like dancing around this, is right. So we're talking about technology, we're talking about news, we're talking about media. This is a book that really expands the concept of internet safety and what that means. And so, usually we think of internet safety as like these completely tech-based solutions. And actually, so much of this book, I mean, there's like a really big chunk of it that's devoted to, make sure you have strong passwords and all those sorts of things. And those are really important. But, you're saying in the book that internet safety is also about media and media literacy and being aware of the ways that you can be manipulated by media. Right.
So
So
I
it's
just,
really,
yeah.
we're really thinking about, the psychosocial sort of elements of technology and the psychological impact of these technologies on us. And so, and this is actually something that comes from my Internet Freedom Festival community. When you have activists and journalists around the world who are needing to protect their privacy and safety, we've realized over time that part of what they really need is like emotional safety. Like they are terrified, like they're legitimately frightened because their lives are at risk. A lot of the time they could be jailed, they could be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we've really done a lot to work on mindfulness, to work on, like we actually have a counselor who shows up at the festival, which is like kind of amazing. Like it's the first time I've ever seen that happen at a conference, but if anybody needs to go talk to somebody, they're there. And, but we talk a lot about strategies for how you can change your media use and what you can, do to help yourself think about things, especially also not just them, but also for consider the people who have to look at all the flagged videos on YouTube and on Facebook and places like that, where we've been finding out that, these big tech companies, rather than, one of the ways they save money is by not having anybody looking at things to make sure that it doesn't violate their terms of service. And then they farm it out to some other company where all the workers are temp workers. They don't have health insurance, stuff like that. I mean, we've learned some really frightening things about the psychological impact of just watching beheadings or like child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been, I remember this from actually an earlier generation at Yahoo too. I remember seeing a job ad posted saying, you're going to be looking at our flagged content and you must see a therapist because there will be child pornography and there will be other really dark things. And we don't know. Are
you going to pay for my therapist, Yahoo?
Yeah, at that point in time, I believe they did. Okay. Whereas, but then that was a much smaller, like the scale wasn't anywhere near as big as it is now. And now we have, just hundreds, thousands of workers who are having to go through this around the world too. Like it was in, some of them were in Arizona, I think, but some of them were in the Philippines. And, so that what happens to them happens to us too, although less of a high dosage. I talk about the slot machine mechanics that Tristan Harris, a former Google employee, talks about, where your social media feed is like a slot machine. You are continually like it's working on your addiction centers in your brain to get you to pull the lever and get you to pull out the lever. And like first time maybe you get a cat picture and yay, that's super cute. Or like, then you get like an uplifting statement from your friend and then you get some Nazi propaganda and it just, or you get somebody saying something really, foul about somebody else. And so, and that actually makes it more addictive. If you were only getting good stuff, eventually you'd be like, I'm good, I can put this aside from now. But or even if you just get something boring, like you're like, I need something more interesting than this right now. And it's all tuned to doing that. So that's really something we all have to watch out for. A thing I recommend for that is actually on Facebook, I've muted pretty much everybody. Like I don't have much coming down my feed at all anymore. So I just use it to go to the pages of people I care about when I want to, because otherwise the algorithm is there and it's controlling, what you see and it's picking it for you. Facebook famously did an experiment at one point, seeing if they could cause emotional contagion. Actually, it was Facebook and some outside scholars working with them. And the emotional contagion was basically, if we show people happy things, do they continue on a happy vein? And if we show people like sad, depressing things, do they continue on a sad, depressing vein? And yeah, like that was how it worked. The people who were, who saw good stuff continued on. So and of course, one of the goals for Facebook is to get you to buy things from people who are advertising to them. So, or to support paid content. So that's we need to think about, like, what's driving what we end up seeing. Is it what we want or is it what they want? So, yes. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that that it's not just enough to kind of accept, and it can be really easy to fall into this trap. And going back to my emails, I looked at that, I looked at the list this morning and I knew this interview was coming up. And I was like, first of all, by writing this list down of these horrible anxiety inducing emails, I can start to pick out which organizations and campaigns are sending these. And so I actually just unsubscribed from 2 of them. And, they give you a little box where you can say why. Mm-hmm. And what I said was, please stop sending emails with anxiety inducing headlines, appeal to people's strengths and values and not fear. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I seriously, because we do need to ask that. I think they don't realize, the email senders particularly, I don't think they realize the volume at which, but that happens, and that happens too. I remember when COVID, when everybody started making the COVID announcements saying like, we're here to support.
oh, that was
It's like,
terrible.
well, and I'm like, everybody's doing this and this is not helping.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
this
like,
is not good for
I
any
don't
of us.
need to know like what Dick's Sporting Goods or what is
I know,
doing about COVID.
just take a back seat, Dick's Sporting Goods. Like, this is not your time. Like, I didn't even need the airlines to get in touch with me at that point in time. And I thought I was going to be flying. Like, I just chill out, y'all. Like, just chill out.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like we have, and I think, I mean, part of the reason is that these, that a lot of the controls are hidden from us deliberately, or because developers don't think they're important, or because I think it's just easy to just kind of be like, okay, I got on this email list. Maybe I didn't even sign up for it.
Yeah.
But I just kind of like take it. This email started coming into my inbox, and I guess I just accept that that's part of my reality. And it kind of takes a moment to wake up and say, no, I can mute people. I can unfollow. I can unsubscribe. Like I can stop using a service. Like I actually have the power to do that. And I think that so much of the book is about that, is like, you have the power to do this and you should do it. And you have these wonderful scout laws, the Keep Calm scout laws that appear throughout the book. And so many of these are wonderful, and I can just read a couple of them because I really love them.
I should say, on the topic of unsubscribing really quickly too, there's a great website called, it does require you to give it access to your email briefly, but you can then tell it no again afterwards. It's called unroll.me. If you just type in unroll.me, it will give you a list of all of the various people who you've subscribed to or somebody has subscribed you to.
I'm
so
writing
that's
it
there.
down.
And also, the website for Keep Calm and Log On, which is keepcalmlogon.com, not Keep Calm and Log On, but just keepcalmlogon.com, has a lot of these tools there, because that's the stuff that might go stale a little bit faster than the book, but you can check out the website as well. There's lots of tips and techniques.
Yeah. So yeah, I've looked at that website, and that's a great resource. So some of these scout laws, and I mean, this is just a few of them. And I like how you thread them throughout the book. Understanding what technologies actually do to my brain can help me break patterns that aren't helping me live my best life. So media addiction of various kinds. It's really important. My digital life may feel unimportant in the big picture, but it's important to me. Right?
That's
so like
huge when it comes to security in particular, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm not that worried about, like, I'm not that important a person who's going to attack me. They're going to attack you. They will attack you for everything that's in your bank account and for your credit. And, when that happens to you, that's really going to suck. So, it's worth taking a couple proactive steps.
And you make the point too, that it's not right, that they can use you to access your insurance company or your employer or your church or whatever, that they can use you as a weak security point to get into a bigger, more lucrative place. So that's really important. I talk to different people in my life in different ways. It should be up to me to decide who I want to talk to, how and when. And I think, just thinking about, email, text, chat, social media. I mean, just all of these things, like, these are our things to have control over. If something digital is not working for me right now, I can turn it off.
And that's key for all sorts of things. Like that's especially that's a security tip in addition to a privacy tip, or just a mindfulness tip, is because basically, so for example, if you're Bluetooth, if you leave Bluetooth on all the time, there's been an attack discovered where somebody can walk by your car with a little sniffer device, and like if your laptop is still on or your phone is still on in there, they can be like, there's a device here. They can't necessarily hack through it, but they might steal it. So like that's one of the, so it's like, if it's not doing work for me right now, it's like, even if it's something that I normally like, right? Exactly.
Security happens because of my behavior, not someone else's, and not because of a gadget or app. Can I just tell you that when I read that, I wanted to send this book to my dad, because my dad is one of those people who's just all about getting your antivirus. And if you've got your antivirus software, you're just impenetrable. And and you're just
Nowhere near
like,
as important.
no, update your
No.
programs, update your
Yeah.
operating system.
Yeah, you basically that's the most important thing, and that's a hard one for a lot of people, because like if you have to buy a new computer, or you have to get a computer that can run the latest software, that can get really expensive. It's worth looking into maybe a cheaper laptop or a cheaper phone or something at that point in time. But that is one of the big ways that people can get through to you. Antivirus is an add-on, it's an afterthought. Basically, as I've said in the book, software ships broken. It's one of the very few things that can be sold to you without it having some sort of process that's guaranteed to go through, because it's really complicated. Shipping software is like shipping a city. It's like you got water and fire departments, and you got public transit, and you've got social services, and you've got food supply and things like that. All of that is part of a city, and little bits of that break down. And there are ways for people to get in around the edges and commit crimes, and that's basically what happens, with software. And really, I think one of the metaphors I use is a garden. So it's like thinking about the pest, like not just spraying pesticides after the fact, but making sure the soil is healthy, making sure the plants are healthy. Or in terms of your house, locking your doors and windows, right? Like we lock our doors and we lock our windows if we don't want to, if we're American. Apparently in Canada, there's, we don't have to, they don't have to worry about that as much. But, there are things that we can do and that we think of as sensible, and password management is a huge one. Reusing passwords, unfortunately, is one of the major ways that people can come at you, because passwords, the way that computer criminals get your passwords is by going to just lists of passwords online. So if you've used it, say on Target, which had that major breach, then that password, they just are going to try to guess that against a whole bunch of other stuff using your login name that you maybe have the same that's over at Target. So yeah, so that's unfortunately up to us. The recommendation there is to get a password manager, like LastPass or 1Password. And it's got to be an encrypted, devoted one, not the one in your browser, but a special devoted password manager.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that, because of, one of the silver linings of COVID, the innumerable teeny tiny ones, is that I finally had the time, and I was like, I'm just going to sit down and do this LastPass thing.
Yep.
And it's amazing. And if you haven't done, it doesn't have to be a LastPass, but just like any password manager, it's just so great. And if I sign up for a new website, I don't have to remember the password. I know that LastPass has it.
Right.
And
exactly.
It's
and it syncs
wonderful
across your devices. Like I got it on my phone, I got it on my laptop. I would say I do recommend LastPass, 1Password, or what is the other one? Is it KeyPass? I gotta remind myself of that. But those two, there's some encryption problems with some of the other ones out there. So LastPass and 1Password are the two that I recommend. But like I said, not the one in your browser, because that one is usually vulnerable. But yeah, I mean, like if you're setting yourself up with a password manager, it's pretty easy to just over the course of a week, you don't have to sit down and do it all at once, because gosh, you have so many sites that you log into. Just like as you log into a site, in the course of a week, change that password, change the next one, change the next one. Start with your email, get your email locked down first, because your email is usually the security valve for all of your other stuff. So get that one under extra security. I use a key, a USB key that called a YubiKey in this case, but there's other ones as well. It's just the thing that you have in your hand, and you plug it in, and it makes sure, it's another way of proving that you are who you are, basically. So that's one way to do it. The multi-factor authentication too. You can also have it text your phone, or use an authenticator app on your phone.
Yeah, great. And so, moving on to, I want to do my last scout law, because I think that'll move into the next question that I have, which is, so we've talked a lot about media so far. We've just touched on, exploitative media strategies, and all these various things that we need to be on the lookout for. And one of your scout laws that keeps coming up over and over again, especially in the second half of the book, is if I can understand where my own opinion comes from, I will be better prepared to protect myself from people who want to manipulate me. Yeah. So and that is huge. And, so I want to say that for anybody who's looking at the cover or the title of this book and thinking that Gus Andrews just like cashed in on a trend, let me tell you that actually this is so much about propaganda. And there's a reason why Keep Calm and Blank, which was British World War II propaganda, is used as the title of this book. And you actually have propaganda pictures from the First and Second World Wars all throughout the book, that are kind of like reflecting and making commentary on the content as you go. And yeah, that's a great example. I mean, they're just.
I only wish we could have done them in color. They're so cool. Like,
yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah, public domain images.
Yeah, and so I just want to ask about, first of all, what led you to want to use that archive of more traditional propaganda in the book. But also, we are living in what is now called the attention economy, where our attention literally makes money for people. So in the age of the attention economy, why is it important for us to think about these propaganda techniques?
Right. So this all sort of dates back to actually some of the early history of the media literacy movement in the United States, which actually was, it came about to counter the rise of Nazism and nationalism in Europe. And so basically, you had some folks in the United States, actually, oddly enough, Edward Filene, the founder of Filene's Basement, was really interested in funding this. And then there was some media literacy or some, communications educator people at Teachers College, where I went, who were interested in sort of helping people understand this a little bit better. What they were worried about was seeing, nationalism basically pitting people against each other and playing on, their biases and their beliefs in order to come to power. And we're seeing some pretty similar stuff now. And actually, one of the things that we're seeing, and once again, this ends up becoming sort of a political football for some people, but the evidence that I've seen from the intelligence community in the United States, and the evidence the intelligence community and the hacker community actually kind of overlap, particularly at this one conference called ShmooCon in DC every year. We definitely have evidence that Russia made attempts to manipulate the United States and popular opinion in the United States. And they did it by trying to get people to go further in their beliefs on both sides of the political spectrum. So yeah, we saw them, putting out some propaganda out there that they knew would spread. The word propaganda, of course, means to propagate or to spread. We saw them trying to, put pro-Trump messages out there and another pro, right-wing kind of messages. So they would have messages about abortion. They would have messages about gun control, but they were also, trying to stoke people's interest in Black Lives Matter and to make that movement more radical. And, to do anti-Trump, pro-Hillary things as well. So you're not immune because of where you stand on the political spectrum. Somebody is trying to make you more of an extremist. And unfortunately, this kind of dovetails also with what happens on social media. There's been some studies of YouTube and just how YouTube's algorithm works. And I believe that the example that Zeneb Tufekci, whose last name I'm not good at pronouncing, put forward, she was like, well, I started looking into it. I started looking at videos about jogging, and eventually I watched more and more YouTube videos, and they started giving me stuff on like extreme marathoning, right? So it's like took this sort of normal pastime and then made it more extreme. And it's doing the same, they're doing the same thing on the political spectrum as well. Like you might be, who knows, maybe you have even some libertarian tendencies, and then they're like, well, what you really want is to be with QAnon. So they're going to send you down a conspiracy theorist path as well. So this is like the commercial impulse of getting people to stick with YouTube, and the foreign influence impulse of Russia. But we also know, I was just reading the paper this morning, that to manipulate the election results as well. And this is not just going to be attacking voting machines. This is attacking us on social media and how we feel and think about things. So that's where our attention is really, really valuable. Our attention is ours. it belongs to us in our local communities, not even in our federal, not even at the federal level, not even at the national level. This is something we need attention to fix potholes. We need attention to make sure our neighbors are fed. We need attention to make sure that our water supply is doing okay, right? So the time that we spend, even just trying to score points on the other side, you know, if you're out there going, well, this is outrageous and this outrageous thing is happening, you are taking the attention of your friends and amplifying it by saying these, you know, talking about these horrible things. So I really emphasize to people, if you're not spreading political stuff to get people to act on something that is important to fixing your community, you're probably doing more harm than good. I know it feels good, and you may be trying to, you know, bring people's attention to things, but especially if it's something scary, if it's like, I mean, not to say that we should not be paying attention to the fact that, like, we just learned there are hysterectomies being performed in detention camps down at the border, but that is an incendiary, like, that's a really scary, huge thing. And there are other things that we also need to be focusing on, like, how is your local voting system doing? Like, do you have poll workers enough to make sure that this election goes smoothly? So just, you know, making sure that we are doing work, or if you want to talk about the detention camps, actually contacting your senator and just not just getting into a fight with people online, right? So we need to be really, really intentional with our attention. And that doesn't mean don't watch silly cat videos, because, like I said, for our mental health, we need the silly cat videos. Like, I need so many silly cat videos right now. You have no idea. I need basically like 24/7 just to survive a given day. But, you know, it's really important that we be really deliberate right now and not just share things. Like, if you're like, especially if you, stop yourself, slow your roll on particular things. Like, if you're posting something and going, this would be really scary if true.
Right.
Anything that's like, if true, don't even
verify
bother to share that.
It as true before you post
verify
it
as true, and don't bother to post it otherwise. You know, go and check a bunch of sources.
You know, and I think listening to you talk, you have really vindicated me in my decision, a decision that I made years ago to stop arguing with people on the internet.
Yeah.
And even if they're people that I know, and even if they're really wrong, and even if the ideas that they're talking about are harmful, because I think you're right that it's how we're spending our attention and how we're pulling other people's attention into what we're paying attention to. And it's like, if that person is talking about this thing that I find so abhorrent, then maybe I should just ignore that and go sign a petition or donate or do something instead of arguing with that person.
Right. I think there are moments and times when it does work, but you have to know how to do it, and not everybody does. I have one friend, actually, the other puppeteer on the media show, Abby Estes, is really, really good. She stands sort of athwart a couple of different political groups. She has a lot of queer friends in New York, and then she has a lot of conservative family back home. And she does a really, really good job. She wants to understand where people come from, and she wants them to understand the human cost of decisions that they make. And she, you know, because she's not going out there to score points and be like, I'm right or whatever, I think she actually does some good, and I think she actually moves people's opinions. But she engages with people she knows. And it's I think it's especially not useful to, like, randos on the internet, especially random people on the internet, because that is the point where you may end up bumping up against somebody who is not there in good faith. There is so many people are there to argue just to make you mad, or there are people who are literally out there being paid by politicians. And this is happening around the world. This is not just us. Like, in the internet freedom community, we have been seeing for many, many years, in 2012, 2013, Brazil and Mexico, you had politicians you know, just spreading a whole bunch of garbage information out there and, you know, attacking their opponents. That's increasingly common. And so that's one of the reasons why I think it's just not useful to engage, because there are people who are pouring money into making things worse.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So
Tell
we need
everybody,
to
don't argue with strangers on the internet. Like,
don't argue.
Don't argue, just don't do it.
we used to say, especially with YouTube, don't read the comments. Like, it's not worth it to read the comments. Is always the worst thing. Actually, the one thing on YouTube that's starting to be great is, like, music on YouTube. If you feel like, especially like really chill music that people are doing their homework to, weirdly enough, everybody's like, thank you so much. You are making my day so much better by posting this music. And so I'm suddenly like, those comments aren't that bad, So yeah, but for the most part, don't engage with people who are, it's so hard to convince people of this. Don't engage with the trolls. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And because somebody who doesn't look like a troll may end up being a troll.
Yes.
And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to talk with someone in good faith and then finding out that they are not talking with you in good faith.
No.
And it's just like, well, I just wasted my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think kind of related to that, to this whole propaganda thing, one of the things that you talk about in the book is kind of the many pressures, and we've already talked about this a few times, the many pressures that are on technology and media, that we as users may not see. And that some of the reason why these things, which in theory should work to serve us, right? I sign up for Facebook because I want to keep in touch with people, but in a lot of ways it's not serving me, and it's feeding me a bunch of stuff I don't want. The reason why is that there are these pressures behind the scenes that we can't see. One of those is profit. Which is really big. And also just, and then like from profit come like a bunch of teeny little pressures too, like for instance, like the need to have 24-hour news no matter what.
Right.
And also, thinking about like practical difficulties with coding and putting together, like actual devices. So
the security implications on that as well.
Yeah. It's just like, right. Technology actually is really complicated. And it's like, it can be really frustrating to use. And a lot of that it's like literally not our fault. It's because there are all of these things like swirling, that we can't see. So I guess just like really briefly, just kind of like walk us through like that technology or media technology frustration moment, and what to do.
Gosh, let's see how. That's sort of a big question. I'm trying to figure out, can we break it down? Like what kind of, and so the frustration of, it's changed a lot, like say the technology changes, and that happens on the regular, this is the reason why people frequently don't want to download updates. There's actually a combination sort of like social impact and then code impact or security impact on this, where, you may go, the last time I downloaded this app, they moved the button and I could not figure out where anything was, and they shifted everything all around. And that is so frustrating. I'm not going to download the new version again. And then that becomes a security problem, because that same download may have actually fixed the security hole that people were getting in and, attacking people's, stuff that way. So behind the scenes, I've worked on software as well. Like I have been somebody who has done design, usability work on software. And there are plenty of reasons. Like sometimes software is being updated because it was actually not that usable to begin with. So maybe, you had a website that was made up of a couple different websites put together, and they didn't all work the same way, and then they didn't connect well, and so something was broken. So they're like, we have redone this whole thing and we fixed it. So they're actually trying to act in your best interests, at that moment. But it doesn't feel that way because they moved that button, and you're like, it's literally our reflexes. Like we literally know to move the mouse here and to click here to do a certain thing. And, they forget, I think. I mean, I've forgotten, it's hard as somebody working on software to remember that you are causing problems with people's reflexes that way. And it sucks, but, in that case, there are reasons to, just suck it up and deal, and you're going to have to get along to the next, the version of the software. Know that in the grand scheme of things, it will help out more. And I grumbled about this as much as anybody else. Slack did an update a little while ago that I was like, you moved my cheese back. And ultimately I'm like, yeah, actually this new design is a little bit easier to use once I got used to it. But then there are times when, they may change things that really are there to make, or for more profit. So for example, you'd scroll down to the bottom of your tweets and it would say, load more. And now it just loads more. And that is one of the ways that they sort of add to that slot machine mechanic and make it more sticky so that you continue to stay there and, continue to watch, even though you wanted to go to bed, then and you're up in the middle of the night and you're like, just gotta click on another thing. So, right. So that is one example, but then there's also sort of the larger example with Twitter in particular. This one drives me crazy. So Twitter knew before they went public that they had tens of thousands of accounts that were fake. They were what they call not even sock puppet, but bot accounts, right? They were automated, whether they were commercial spam or political actors trying to get the things that they wanted out of the platform. They were there, but if Twitter had to get rid of those accounts, their stock value would have gone down. So that was directly related to the profit of the company. Yeah. And that only got worse. They finally, it took public pressure. It took public pressure and awareness and, journalistic articles being written about it, news articles being written, to get them to finally get rid of, I think they ended up getting rid of hundreds of thousands of fake accounts, but it is not in their interest to do that, right? So that's a thing to remember, is that there are reasons why they let bad actors continue on some of the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess it's almost just like part of this revolution that we're in is that we have to understand that when we're engaging with technology, we're actually the ones in power. And technology, as so much of it functions now, is oftentimes hopes that you will not understand that, and that you'll just keep scrolling, and that you will blame yourself for your moral failure if you keep scrolling
when it's hard
instead of going to bed, when they are making it actually literally addictive.
Sure. And then there's also the network effects too. If you're going, it's really hard at this point in history to start a new social network, because people are going to be like, but all my friends are there. And it's really, if you've tried, I have gotten off of Facebook, and I had friends who accused me of abandoning them, or, not wanting to, engage with them anymore. And, but one of the major things that I recommend to people right now is, if you can, consider moving your actual social behavior to a private chat channel of some sort, whether that's on WhatsApp or on something else, something that is not ad driven, something that does not have a nonstop permanent bottomless feed, right? If you can do those things, and you don't have to give up on your friends, and you could do a group SMS or something like that, or you could even use I don't know what Apple's chat is right now. There's any number of different possibilities that don't have a feed, and they don't have ad or profits as the motive. That has been huge for me, because that quickly gets you out of the addictive mode. And you may have to ask your friends and say, hey, come with me, let's all do this, let's go here as well. That also gets you to the place where you're choosing much more who you're talking to. So you're not on Facebook being like, oh yeah, I might be saying something to my church group and the kids I used to babysit, and my drinking buddies and my college friends, and you're not saying all that to them at once, which really changes the way that you speak to people, because then you're really public, right? And that's not social, right? Because the things that you need out of social interaction that we really need as people is to be understood and to be heard. And those things can happen much better on a smaller channel. So we still have I'm not saying leave these tools entirely. I'm not saying go on a total digital detox, but it's harm reduction. It's about making a few small choices that get you to a place where you can break the addictive cycle more easily, and then start getting what you actually need and want out of technology.
And I think too, what I'm hearing you saying is that there's a way, so much of technology. We just talked about developers making software use very inconvenient for any number of reasons. But I think when we're talking about technologies that may be addictive or even manipulative, we actually need to start building friction in, like,
Yes.
because like Facebook is this extremely easy to use. Like I can contact anybody immediately. It is a very like pleasurable, frictionless process. But if I want to take control over who I'm talking to and not give that to Facebook, then I might have to add some more friction back into that experience that
Absolutely.
I'm not used to anymore. And that's
Yes.
just kind of like a deliberate choice that we have to make. It's like hand washing dishes again instead of using the dishwasher. It's like, but in this case, like the
But
dishwasher
not even as hard as that. Like,
money, you know?
that's a really funny one for me because I'm like, yeah, because the dishwasher doesn't take your money. I personally, I hate washing dishes by hand.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not going to give up my dishwasher. But what I'm saying,
I'm not giving up the vacuum cleaner.
Like
yeah, but it does feel like that. But it ends up not like, you know, I've moved most of my stuff over to Slack, which is not ad driven. They have a sort of a more of a freemium model where if you pay, you can keep your messages around more, and then things disappear if you don't. And it's not all that different. Like it really feels better. Like I feel so much better for it now. But friction, like you said, that's the thing that I really end up talking about. The good thing about friction is it ends up frequently giving you a security benefit. There's a lot of the things I recommend for both improving your security and improving decreasing the addictiveness. So I have my USB key two-factor authentication tool that I plug into my laptop that I specifically use on Twitter. I think I also use it on Facebook as well. And that slows my roll, right? Like it's one more step that I have to take. So I might go, I don't need to find that key right now. I don't know where that is. You know, and then also I'm not on there, you know, continuing to scroll. And I am still on Twitter, but I can actually feel that I'm not addicted to it now in the way that I was when I was up in the middle of the night, going around finding what I knew were bot accounts that were saying like horrible, harassing things to people. I was up literally in the middle of the night being like, report. And then I'm like, I'm doing free labor for Twitter, which I don't need to do. I actually don't need to do that for them. So, but yeah, so that was something that improves both, you know, the security of my account, because if, you know, somebody doesn't have that key, they can't get into my account. And then also it slows my addiction down as well. So.
Wow. Yeah. Addiction to technology is such a real thing. So my last question for you, and this is the big one that I think gets asked in like every interview, has been asked in like every podcast, every YouTube interview, every Facebook Live, like, you know, for the past 6 months. But I feel it's really, really pertinent. And I'm sorry that you didn't get to have a traditional book tour.
I know. But
I also feel like this book is just the perfect book for right now. You know, right now we've just got so much going on. There's a pandemic, which was just like unprecedented in living memory, basically. There is probably one of the most polarized elections in U.S. history. We're seeing natural disasters, just, you know, we're seeing massive social change and social upheaval, you know, for like more than in years. And it, like, we're entering this right now when technology and media are just front and center in the way that we interface with all of it. And so my question for you is the $1 million question, which is, what's the most important thing for people to be doing or thinking about or reframing, you know, whatever it is, as they are using technology in this very necessary way to navigate the situation we're in right now?
So, I mean, I think the thing about this book that sometimes doesn't get said is it really, and I sort of felt weird going forward, you know, doing this, but it's just a self-help book, really.
It is.
You know, yeah, and I'm not always comfortable with that format. You know, there's been a few books in my life that I'm like, oh yeah, no, that totally changed my life. But it really is something where, you know, there's exercises in here to just do, and they come from mindfulness. I've done some, you know, mindfulness work over time, and I've really found that it helps me a lot in slowing down and going, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And I think that's really the important thing to understand right now. It's to understand where we are and who we are in this revolution, and understand how it's impacting our lives, really. Understand, I mean, because technology has really played a role in all of the things that you've mentioned in a lot of ways. Pandemic, a little bit less so, but like, certainly the political landscape has really changed based on how easy it is to just say anything, suddenly, and get, all sorts of information, and then automate nonsense information that goes, or garbage information that goes out there too. And natural disasters, our ability to sort of be everywhere, is related to, how much we travel, how much we go. I mean, we ultimately are living through, globalization's been around for much longer than we think about. I had one professor who liked to peg it back to like, Columbus and to that age of exploration where people really started, that was the beginning, the only way that you could start with the mass migration that we saw. And we need to stay in touch with our friends and families who are really far away in some cases, not for everybody, but for some of us, they're really, really far. So, that is, also part of the social upheaval too, is that sort of wears on the cloth of our communities and how we can interact with each other. And we might need technology to continue to stitch that together, but we also need it to not make it worse. We need to not have it, tear things apart. I think that's, coming back down to the idea of propaganda and what spreads. One of the things I'm thinking about a lot, I'm sitting here in Brooklyn, I'm sitting here in New York City. There is one side of the media right now that is spreading the narrative that New York City is a dangerous hellhole and everything's on fire and people are rioting and looting. And I promise you, I'm looking out the window right now. No, like it's fine. We are, and even in earlier generations where the media narrative said, Detroit is burning, the Bronx is burning, Watts is burning, these urban centers are dangerous. That is a story that's being told. And it's helpful to remember that there may be reasons why people are telling that story, and they may personally want to benefit from that story. But we can, with social media, get the real story, because we can get the story from each other. Like I've actually been really thinking about this lately, is just like going out in the street and just being like, doing like a walking podcast or a walking, live video stream and being like, hey, it's sunny. People are walking down the street saying hi. Like, the other day I was up on a ladder in front of my house and a little old black lady comes up. She's like, wait. And she checks the part that keeps the ladder from falling down. And she just like locked it into place so that I wouldn't fall off the ladder. And that happens every day in New York City, right? So we need to hear from actual people who don't have a financial interest in telling one story or another. We need to hear from them. We need to not hear from bots, and we need to not hear from, international actors, what's going on. Like if we can tell real stories, again, in media that support doing that, we're going to be better off, and we need to do that now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's so super important, is just like, and I think it's so easy in the pandemic, especially, to feel like I need to stay in my house, and like, yes, like generally we need to stay in our houses and we, but there's a point at which you like, I have to look out my own window.
Yeah.
I have to see with my eyes what is going on.
That's why I live in New York. That's the really hard thing right now, is like, we are used to in New York seeing more people. We see them face to face all the time, and we see people who aren't like us. That's one of the things I also say, and like as I'm talking in the book about propaganda, is, and media generally, is look at the media and see if it's people being represented who aren't like you, who are from different backgrounds from you, from different places from you. What is the thing that's being said about those people?
Yes.
Like, is it something that, can you know for sure that it's true about those people if you've never met those people before? In New York, I'm much more likely to go out and meet somebody who's not like me at all and doesn't think like me at all. And it is hard for us to not be able to go out and do that. And it does begin to make us more fearful, but we still have to go to the park, because we're New Yorkers. We don't have our yard. You gotta go hang out in the park, because otherwise you're going to go crazy. And so we've been out hanging out in the park, and we're doing it without spreading the pandemic. We're keeping our masks on, we're keeping social distance, and that's the way to counteract a lot of this, stuff that you get from somewhere else that's not for you, and it doesn't have your best interests in mind. So
yes, absolutely. And that the information that we're getting, it's coming from all different places, and it's happening for all different reasons and with all different motivations behind it. And I agree, that's just so important to think about during this time right now.
I should say one of the things that I've got on the website is there's a page about breaking out of your filter bubble. There are some really great organizations like Living Room Conversations and a couple other organizations like that that are specifically trying to set up conversations between like real actual people, and where it's not just like, you know, you're sniping at each other and then you're like being mean in the comments section, in such a way that you actually, you know, need to get to know people and empathize with them. And that's going to be really important for the next couple of years, probably. Like we need to do some work on that. So
important for the next forever, but really for always,
because we're social beings. We have mirror neurons that want to look at other people and identify with them. And the more that we can do that with people who don't necessarily see eye to eye with us, the better it is.
I agree. Well, you know, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Gus, for doing this. And again, the book is Keep Common Log On. We've got it in the library catalog, and we've got it on, we've got a link down below where you can purchase it from Literati Bookstore. And thank you everyone so much for coming this evening to watch this video.
Thanks.